From where do you join us this evening, as the shadows lengthen and the world settles into its quiet repose? Tonight, we journey not across the ocean, nor into the bustling heart of the empire, but rather to its very edge. A long, cold line of steadfast stone known simply as the Wall, the enduring monument to the Emperor Hadrian's decree, standing sentinel against the mists of the northern world. We seek the profound silence that clings to the ramparts of Britannia, where Roman ambition paused, and the disciplined legions carved a definition into the wild, rolling earth, creating a thousand-year meditation in gray stone that still whispers tales of duty and distance to the passing wind. Imagine yourself standing upon the turf rampart, the ground firm beneath your hobnailed sandals, the great defensive ditch known as the vallum stretching away to either horizon like a scar etched by the gods themselves. This was the ultimate frontier, a place where the sun rose late and set early, and the light always carried a chilling sheen reminiscent of polished steel. The stone blocks, hauled and lifted by the immense effort of 3 legions, lie stacked 8 feet wide and 15 feet high, a calculated measure of Roman might built not merely to repel an army, but to declare an end to expansion, to delineate the known from the utterly unknowable, forcing the weary legionary to gaze northward toward a fog-shrouded land that Rome itself had chosen not to conquer, accepting a boundary for the first time in centuries. It is here, among the mile castles and the solitary turrets, that the true weight of the empire's structure can be felt. A burden of stone and separation laid upon the shoulders of men from Iberia, Gaul, and the sun-baked deserts of Africa, all bound together by the eagle standard and the silent demand of their distant city. The life of the sentinel, perched atop his tower as the drizzle sweeps in from the western sea, was a unique blend of interminable boredom and sudden, heart-stopping terror. For the threat from the north often manifested not as an organized invasion, but as quick, spectral raids by the tribes who understood the shadowed glens and hidden paths far better than any surveyor sent from Rome. He stood with his shield leaning against the damp wall and his gaze fixed upon the empty moors of Caledonia, listening intently to the sounds that the wind carried, the cry of a distant raptor, the unexpected snapping of a twig far below, or the faint drumming sound of hooves upon earth hardened by frost. Knowing that his vigilance was the single thread holding the fragile peace of the province together, ensuring the quiet continuation of commerce and civil life south of the Great Barrier. This constant internalized tension lent the very air a quality of quiet menace, transforming the picturesque landscape into a stage for unceasing psychological warfare, where patience was the primary weapon and alertness the only defense against the shadowy figures who slipped through the heather like ghosts. When the mist rolled in thick and white, swallowing the peaks and valleys, the world shrank dramatically, confining the soldier to his immediate stone post, isolating him utterly from the neighboring mile castle and the familiar sight of the military way where supplies traveled. During these hours of profound blindness, the wall became not a protector, but a suffocating prison, cutting off sight and sound and leaving only the cold, rough touch of the wet stone for comfort. The centurion demanded constant communication, requiring horn blasts or shouted calls to be passed down the line, sound traveling across the obscure distance like a fragile lifeline stretched between islands of stone, desperately attempting to maintain the illusion of continuity in the face of nature's immense power to dissolve all human endeavor into formless gray obscurity. It was in such moments, when the known world dissolved, that the philosophical purpose of the wall asserted itself most strongly: teaching the men that the line between order and chaos was arbitrary, resting solely upon the discipline enforced by their own hearts and the unforgiving sharpness of their pylons. Look now towards the deep ditches that precede the wall, cut with such precision and effort by thousands of hands. They serve as a testament to Rome's desire for lasting control, a determination to shape the very earth to serve its defensive needs, ensuring that any approach from the north required a difficult scramble under a constant rain of projectiles from above. These steep, carefully engineered slopes were not intended merely to slow the enemy, but to frustrate their spirit, demanding an exhausting climb before they even encountered the towering stone barrier, draining their will before the real engagement even began. The true genius of Hadrian's construction lay not just in its defensive height, but in the psychological landscape it created, drawing a final, unwavering line in the wet soil of Britannia that declared, with quiet, monumental arrogance, that this far and no further shall the known world extend its civilized reach. The smaller settlements, or vici, clustered outside the main forts were a fascinating contradiction to the military discipline enforced within the barracks, for here the wives, traders, tavern keepers, and camp followers established a vibrant, if sometimes rough, civilian life, bringing the smells of roasted meat and fermenting grain right up to the grim, watchful gates of the fortress. These communities provided a necessary tether to the human world for the soldiers, many of whom served 25 years far from their families, offering fleeting moments of warmth and distraction from the relentless monotony of patrol duty and drill, allowing the hardness of the military spirit to soften slightly beneath the influence of domestic life and fleeting earthly pleasures. It was a symbiotic existence. The military required the suppliers and comforts of the vicus, and the vicus survived under the protective, though sometimes heavy, shadow of the legionary garrison. Both entities bound together by the shared reality of life on the edge of the known cosmos, reliant entirely upon the integrity of the Great Stone Line. Consider the auxiliary soldiers, men drawn from tribes technically conquered by Rome, often serving under Roman centurions and marching under Roman standards, yet still maintaining some fragments of their native dress and strange guttural tongues. These diverse units, often specializing as archers, cavalry, or light infantry, formed the majority of the wall's permanent garrison, embodying the pragmatic complexity of imperial power. Their loyalty was bought and sustained through the promise of Roman citizenship upon retirement, a potent incentive that kept foreign hands steady upon Roman spear shafts, turning former adversaries into dedicated defenders of the very empire that had once subdued their ancestral homes, representing a unique historical exchange where freedom was traded for service and lineage was replaced by the durable identity of the Roman citizen. The wall thus became not only a military frontier, but a vast, silent crucible, forging disparate peoples into a singular, loyal entity dedicated to preserving the line Hadrian had drawn in the unforgiving northern landscape. As the moon arcs silently over the basalt ridges, illuminating the deep grooves left by ancient glaciers, the wall takes on a ghostly, monumental quality, appearing less like a defensive work and more like an eternal geological feature, as permanent as the hills themselves. During the cold watch of the 4th hour, when the barracks are silent and only the flickering beacon of the signal fire challenges the absolute darkness, the quiet majesty of the engineering effort reveals itself most fully, reminding the watcher that this structure was meant to endure far beyond the span of a single emperor or even a legion, projecting the power of Rome into a future that the builders themselves could never witness. The wind carries only the sound of itself, sighing over the moorland grasses, a deep, resonant sound that seems to speak of the earth's indifference to the brief, busy lives of men who build walls and then crumble into dust beneath their shadow. Yet, within the protection of the stone, there was culture and learning, as evidenced by the meticulously preserved wooden writing tablets found at the fort of Vindolanda, recording not just military logistics, but also invitations to birthday parties, complaints about poor beer rations, and requests for warmer cloaks from distant wives. These fragile, personal notes tear away the veil of martial severity, revealing the very human struggles, small joys, and simple domestic concerns that persisted even at the farthest edge of civilization, demonstrating that the needs of the spirit and the body